Hello and welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Buy Round Interview Show. Today we are joined by one of the game's top player agents looking after a host of stars in the NRL and the NRLW. Also that has expanded into coaches and some other sports. Welcome to the show, Chris Orr.
Nice to be here, Jimmy.
I'm excited to get stuck into this because I guess it's more about the profession and a little bit about the person as well. But I think what I first want to ask you is the profession itself. It's almost like the fantasy of a lot of sports fans. You know, if you can't make it as a player, can't make it as a coach, you don't have the financial backing to go and invest in a side and buy the corporate suites and be close to the team. In fact, it's actually happened to me on a couple of occasions where people have sort of tried to get me to sort of give them an idea of how to get into to sports management, because it seems this fantasy job.
I think so.
Is that fair?
I think the movie Jerry Maguire
maybe
made it sound a little bit more appealing, exciting. But, you know, there are normal days. But what I do like about it, and I have a lot of different friends that are in different industries, from building to being lawyers or whatever, is my days are always different. You know, when I wake up in the morning and the phone rings, there's a different challenge behind that call.
Is that part of the thrill then? Is that why it is potentially so attractive to the average NRL fan? Oh, I'd love to be even be in the know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, rugby league or sport in general is followed by fanatical fans, and an opportunity to represent some of their legends of the code that they follow would be an ideal job in some people's minds.
And you meet so many people in and around the game that you grew up playing and loving. So
yeah, sport opens doors too. You know, I've met some wonderful people in the course of my career. It's now 26 years I've been operating as an agent. And before that, obviously, I played NRL and Super League. So sport is a very good connector, and it opens the doors. So you get to meet a lot of good people.
I guess the fantasy of the job, and you speak there about picking up your phone, and I've spent a fair bit of time with my own player agent, Dave Riolo, and speaking of phones, he's never off it. And it's very difficult for the player agent to actually separate themselves and actually have downtime and dedicate themselves to focus on friends or family, because that phone goes. And even now in this interview, it's like if a certain name pops up on that phone, we're going to have to pause it.
We're going to have to pause it. They come first. And it is an ongoing family battle. You know, put your phone down, Chris. We're having dinner. My wife would sometimes like to throw it out the window. I'm sure, or they would be no different. When you go on holidays, say you're overseas, I have found my phone locked in the safe of the hotel room a few times.
And you don't get the number.
And I don't get the number, no. Look, that's just part of the role, right? I've had phone calls in the middle of the night, phone calls, and touch wood, the last 2 Christmases have been incident-free, and that's been marvellous.
What about the previous 23?
They've been quite challenging sometimes.
Oh, really? Christmas Day?
Christmas Day.
We
can't go down that path.
Oh, right, okay. I'm just trying to think in my head. Like,
I think over time you get used to it, and it's a funny sort of environment that you do get used to it. I mean, your phone rings, you feel the vibrate, you instantly look at it, and you might have to go to work. You know, it's not 9 to 5.
No, it's 25/8. Like that is, I guess, when these couple of people sort of approached me, I was like, look, it is a demanding job. You can fall into the trap of thinking it's the Jerry Maguire.
Yes.
And it's, you get to hang out with, the stars, get into the nitty gritty and, get personal and all that. And it's beyond challenging.
They're the good times, right? They're the good times when you get to celebrate a grand final win, or a Daily M win with your client. But there's a lot of times when you're going through the trenches with them, okay? You're helping them navigate their way out of those issues or family issues or even their performances or their contract. Before the clubs were able to come up with wellbeing officers, we were dealing with a lot of those issues long before clubs started to take responsibility on helping the player resolve any of those off-field issues. We were many hats back in the early days. Wellbeing, employment, marriage counsellor, whatever it may be. And the game, all games, across the codes have evolved and brought more support, more understanding to the athlete. They're getting way better support than when I played and obviously the years before I played. In and around off-field well-being, but also education. Yeah,
it's almost become. I think it's mandatory now that every club has a welfare officer, and I think maybe even compulsory education as well. So the game is taking responsibility because they see the value in that, and I think there was numerous not studies but correlations between players in education and negative headlines or off-field incidences, and it was quite distinct, and it looked like there was a correlation there.
Well, I can remember having lunch with a particular CEO one day, and we were talking about how to, stop the off-field incidents, especially over the off-season. How do we do that? And he wasn't from a background, he never played rugby league or anything like that. So I sort of pointed to a guy across the road and I said, just imagine if that man right there ran 100 miles an hour into that group of people standing near the bus stop. What would you think? And he looked at me and said, he'd be insane. I said, but on Saturday, we clap him. I said, there's a reason why accountants don't play NRL. There's certain contact sports that takes a certain ability of the human being to want to be in that position. You play in the front row. It takes a certain person to run the ball up into 3 other, 4 other huge humans and enjoy it and do it again. The creative players of our code, mate, they're X factors, right? They're the ones that are risk takers. Unfortunately, it doesn't stop on the sideline sometimes.
Can't switch that off.
You can't switch that off. That's what makes them special.
Thrill seekers, like you say, natural risk takers. It's almost a personality type that suits contact sport specifically. I always say, like, why did the NRL get in trouble off the field? Because he's an NRL player. Well, like it's within their nature to take risks, thrill seek, and
if you're a tough guy on the field, it's hard to turn a tough guy off the field, right? But I absolutely believe the athlete of today in across the codes is way better educated, way better behaved than the previous years because of education, because of the effort the NRL clubs put into them, the NRL put into them. They're much better all-rounded athlete and person.
Yeah, and I think it's an impossible task to have how many players in NRL, like a 30-man roster of choir boys, or people to the ability to turn it off, but there is a conscious effort to awareness, education.
Yep, definitely.
even training on how to manage the off-field pressure or the off-field situations that you will potentially find yourself in as a professional sports person.
Definitely. And, sometimes at a barbecue or a dinner, I did have a gentleman who's a doctor sort of make a comment, how do you go representing these bullfeds? It must be just 24/7 looking after them. And I said to him, imagine a camera following you around for those 6 years from 18 to 24 years of age when you were studying medicine at university with no parents around. Imagine a camera following you around. Would you still be a doctor today? Yes, he understood the difference. He understood straight away there that the spotlight that are on these young men, unfortunately, is 24/7. But again, I think they're dealing with it better.
And not only that, throw in fame.
Yep.
Like being recognised.
Yep.
It almost becomes like a skill itself. Like, I was talking with someone about the Reece Walsh incident that has recently emerged where he's drinking toilet water. And people like that has made headline news. Just a knockabout bloke. And he's like,
look,
and arguably part of that is about being famous. If the 99.9999% of the population did that, people would just go, that's a bit weird.
Yeah.
Bit of an
But because he's a superstar, it gains attraction, But, geez, wouldn't you like an iPhone that checks what you put on before you put it on?
But,
some sort of app that we all use.
I'm going to fast forward a little bit here because I think with social media, most children now grow up with it, and most NRL athletes, it's impossible to avoid, right? It is. You can't ignore it. Myself, I don't have a personal Instagram. I know a few players that I played with during my time that just didn't lean into it. A lot did. It was kind of almost a bit of a debate, like, oh, what are you using that for? But now it's undeniable. The horse has bolted, and every single human being in the Western world would have a social media presence, right? So we can't ignore that. But when it comes to people that go on to become famous or professional sports people, then is it now up to those people to have separate accounts? You have your personal social media accounts, that is your own personal friends. You only accept people who you know. And then it's the public account where you talk to the fans. Because there's a difference between talking to your friends and what you'd like your friends and family and those people that you actually know to see versus what you want the public to see.
Definitely. Look, as much as you need to be authentic on that Instagram or social media account, because the fans will only buy in if you're authentic, you should certainly have a separate one with just your friends that you can share personal photos with your families and all different things. And we encourage that. But it's all around education, how to better use your social media to your advantage. And if you speak to any sponsorship manager out of any corporation these days, the first thing they will check is your social media numbers. We had a client that missed out on about a $50,000 fee only recently because he hadn't been on his social media for a number of months.
Wow.
And
50,000.
Yep, because he hadn't posted in about 3 to 4 months, and that was due to having a little bit of anxiety around a couple of posts he made, and then he got some racial comments. So we educated him around how to filter those comments out. You can put blocks and different things in, and he's back on social media, and hopefully we'll get that deal back.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, there's a lot of tripe that goes on there. I mean,
definitely.
Do I care what any NRL player has for breakfast? Probably not, but I guess, some people do. It's one of my bugbear is when I go to a cafe and see someone taking a picture of a poached egg, like they've just reinvented the wheel. Anyway, back to you and the genesis for this profession. So obviously you mentioned there you're at the Gold Coast for a while at the Chargers.
Yep.
Then moved to come and get your Uddersfield in the UK.
Enjoyed that thoroughly. Met some good friends over in England. And then I returned. I was always going back to England, but I returned, and the Chargers were finished, and this new team, rugby union team, was being announced and developed, coached by legendary Grant Batty. And I thought to myself, hey, can't be that hard to play for the Wallabies. So I put my highlights tape in and got a gig with the Gold Coast Breakers. Started working the front office as the marketing manager as well. And look, it didn't turn out what I thought, but I enjoyed my time in rugby. And then a sliding door moment sort of occurred with my brother ringing me. He was working for Reebok and suggested, asked what my thoughts on about maybe going to the agency game. He probably didn't get the response that he was hoping because I said no. And within 24 hours to 48 hours later, Kevin Campion, a former teammate of mine, also called me, just terminated his agent, and asked whether I would take him on and do it. Because back when I was playing, I was also that guy that was, when the boys went and played golf, I'd go in and work in the marketing department and learn how to do sales, and I'd go out with the team, and I got people sponsored cars, myself sponsored cars, got sponsored food, restaurants, all linked to the players. So everyone sort of knew I was in that sales opportunity.
Yeah, so you're, while you're playing, you're almost the pre-social media partnerships guy on a personal level with the players, whether it be a couple of appearances here and there or discounted rate, and we can
definitely
put it on our wall that this player comes here. The free car with the stickers on with the name. Geez, I had one of them at St. Helens. You could not miss it. It was worth it because it was free. But geez, I sold my soul.
Free Sizzlers, free movies, free theme parks, mate. I'll sort that out for all the guys, and I think it must have stuck in their head because Campo said, this has occurred. Would you like to do it? And I literally said, funny enough, my brother just rang me 2 days ago. Let's catch up for coffee and have a chat about it. So I did, and again, it was that opportunity to say, let me have a look at it. But if I can't do anything, like if I can't get the deal done for you, Campo, you need to go and maybe hire one of these more experienced agents. And again, sliding moment, having coffee the very next day, read the paper, New Zealand Warriors purchased by a new Eric Watson. I rang Campo and said, listen, mate, I'm bringing the Warriors. We're going to go over and visit them. His response was, mate, I didn't tell you to take me to New Zealand. And I spoke to the new CEO, Mick Watson, and we flew over. I said, mate, if we're going to get leverage for the Broncos to give you a better deal, we need to have a look around. By the end of the weekend, I sold him to the Warriors for 3 times what he was on at the offered at the Broncos. And I rang my brother and said, this job's easy, mate. We should go right at this. And that was 26 years ago.
And so you've just got the one player, and that's sort of like laid the foundations.
Yeah.
How quickly did it go from one player to a pool of players where it becomes like financially stable and viable and worth putting everything that you've got going on aside to go, this is now my job?
Yeah, well, if you ask our wives, that was a long time. I'm pretty sure we got to about the 4th year and they said, I think this job that you call a job, I think you're going to have to throw it in and go and get a real job. So it wasn't Jerry Maguire a start. Yes, the Campo thing worked pretty well, but back then there wasn't agents, and it was probably us and Dave Riolo were the first to go chasing those elite schoolboys, because the older brigade of the agents were already connected to all of the top NRL people. So they were already, signing up the NRL players, knowing who's who in the change rooms. So I can remember Gavin signed this 15-year-old kid called Greg Bird. I signed a 15-year-old kid called Nate Miles. And, we had to grow it slowly. Gavin made a real good observation when he noticed that I think it was the Australian schoolboys 15s, and they had something like about 7 or 9 Polynesian young players in it. Gavin jumped on the plane, flew over, and I think it was with Nigel Vuggan had helped him, because Nigel's one of our first clients. He signed up close to the entire junior Kiwis team that year. I think only one player didn't play NRL.
Yeah, wow.
So his initiative, noticing the change of the possible rosters 20 years down the track, probably set us up. To be honest. That was a good decision from Gavin.
So you couldn't go in and disrupt the industry. You had to have an approach of get the players of tomorrow.
Definitely.
Today.
Because there was a closed network. When you think of Super League, I was still playing then. So Super League created a connection between certain clubs. The ARL clubs were all with, the likes of Wayne Beavis and Steve Gillis and these guys. And I think New Zealand was more the SFX group. So relationships were already had. So it was very hard to get into the NRL like that. Of course, you could lean on a possible teammate like Kevin Campion did, who then helped me get a young Ashley Harrison. But we had to go for the elite young kids, identify them, grow with them, because you're not earning money off a 15, 16-year-old kid, you're growing with them. But the likes of Greg Bird, mate, he debuted at 17, 18. He was in first grade, and so was Nate.
Obviously, when you think of these young kids playing, it's gonna put the human spotlight on them. Like, they're somebody's son,
definitely.
And I'm thinking back to my time as a kid, 15, 16. Maybe a few agents trying to get me on their side, and I think my father's thinking, well, hang on,
who's
like,
this guy?
have you got my son's best interests at heart here? Because especially now, player agents, I mean, they're the fall guy a lot of the time, and they get, in my opinion, they are quickly thrown under the bus and made the scapegoat for a lot of things that happen in the game of rugby league and other sports as well. I've recently just finished deadline day over in England for the Premier League, and the agents get a lot of stick, and it's like, well, hang on. So these 15, 16-year-olds, as well as being part of their identity as aspiring athletes and the NRL players of tomorrow, they're someone's son.
Definitely.
So how do you navigate that conversation? And also, I imagine it's not just you. You mentioned Dave was there. What was the point of difference from the Orr family?
Well, I think the fact that we were two brothers, it was a family-orientated business. When we sit down with those young athletes, we've also done it. It's no different than Dave. I broke my jaw playing first grade as a 16-year-old and missed out on the Australian schoolboys. So then I had to, funny enough, put 2 tapes in and do highlight tapes, VHS. People don't know what they are these days, but VHS.
They actually don't.
Put the resume in, put them in an envelope, send it out to all the clubs to get myself an opportunity. So I was doing sort of some agency work back then, thinking outside the box. And Bob Fulton arrived on my doorstep and spoke to my father, and we want to sign your son. And basically my father just handed me over. There and then you could understand that we grew up in a country town called Mudgee. My dad didn't know what, looking into rosters, maybe what was the best roster for young Chris Orr. Bob Fulton was at the door, signed him over.
Yeah.
So it's our job to allow the parents to be parents, enjoy the ride, support their children, go to carnivals, not get caught up in the circus, what I call the circus, where a young athlete is setting the field on fire as a 15 or 16-year-old, and next minute clubs want to talk to them, talk to their parents. Next minute that young person is not thinking about catching that ball, making that tackle. He's thinking about, what does it feel like to live in Melbourne and wear a Melbourne Storm jersey? What would that feel like? I live on the Sunshine Coast. What does that feel like? We take those conversations, and at the end of the carnival, then you'll sit down with the parents and say, this is what's occurred. Take the white noise out of the equation. Let him focus what he's there to focus on, which is to play the very best football he can play. Then sit down with the parents, sit down with the young athlete and say, okay, this is what I've spoken about. These are the opportunities. And then give them your experience, give them your advice. Say, you're a young halfback. This particular roster has also 2 young halfbacks. Then it has another young halfback at this age. And it has a first-grade halfback at this age. And it has an elderly halfback at this age. So that roster, that runway is going to be a bit blocked for you. But this club over here, it has quite a big gap between you and the next halfback, so it's probably a better pathway for you. That's what you need to understand. That's what you need to know. You need to know about club rosters. You need to have the contacts and the network to be able to pick the phone up to anyone in that club, whether it's the head coach or the junior recruitment or the senior recruitment, so you can get the job done for that family. And you also need to lean on the family, because this is what I say to the family. You've known this young man for 15, 16, 17 years. I've only known him for 15, 16 minutes, right? When I come to you with different ideas, I need to understand from you, your opinion, whether he would be suited. Say it's a young North Queensland kid.
Yeah.
Will he be suited to go down and live in Redfern and play for the Rabbitohs? Is that going to work for him? And they might say, he won't survive in Sydney. And it happened to my nephew. He's a country kid out of Mudgee. Him and Val Holmes were both playing for the Sharks fleet. And young Nathan Orr was going really well. He was actually beating Val for the fullback spot. He just hated Sydney. If I had my time again, I would have sent him to the Cowboys, where he could have still gone pig shooting and had that sort of freedom country feel. But yeah, that's what we need to do, and that's the advice we have to give when you're talking to families.
It's fascinating that it goes into that level of detail where, as a 15, 16-year-old, and I actually, look, I've walked in those shoes, but I don't know if it's a good or bad thing that they're thinking so far ahead about, or if this player and I could take over from them, because at 15, 16, there's so much more development, and I've been to a few of those carnivals, and it's a magnificent atmosphere. It's something that I really wish happened back in the UK, because it doesn't quite work like that. But then I'm also thinking
it's too young.
It's too young, and to your point, like, let these kids play without the parents or the coaching staff or the individual being swarmed by 17 NRL clubs that all want to sign him up. It's like, well,
and agents,
yeah. Like you'd as a kid, you wouldn't remember.
Yeah,
I wouldn't remember.
I wouldn't be afraid if we weren't able to sign him to the last year of high school, both club and agents.
Do you think that
would work for me?
Do you think that that's something that the NRL should look to police? Because,
well, I think if we gave the game, the development of the game back to the game, and we allowed these young athletes to come through these rugby league schools now, but they were more NRL focused.
Are you talking about the development of youth not being a club by club responsibility,
Correct.
Being an NRL?
Yep. Let the clubs go back to being like an NFL.
Yeah.
And let the NRL run the development of all these young athletes. Put NRL academy inside schools, and then you can put them in across locations like Coss Harbour. You can put them wherever you need. NRL academies run by ex-NRL players and teachers running these programs, something like that. And then allow the agents to start to track them and talk them. And the clubs talk to them in their last year of high school, and then run something like the AFL or the NFL do. Let's run a combine. I pitched an idea to the NRL a year or so ago around a summit. You could sell that to a city and let the NRL pick the top 200 athletes. They all arrive. I go to the NFL Combine every year. It's exciting. So over there's 700 agents. So 700 agents arrive at Indianapolis. 75 staff from every club arrive in Indianapolis. It's a big event. 490 athletes arrive. Nike arrives. Adidas arrive. It's a big event.
Wow.
We could do that. We could have a summit. We could have...
I love this idea.
Yeah. I think we could have the top 200 kids arrive there. We could get away from all this player switching in the middle of the year. We could have a transfer window around 8. We're a portal, and then the next contract window is the day after grand final. Again, call it the Summit, NRL Summit. Say the Gold Coast buys it for 3 years. The day after the grand final, every player that's off contract flies into the Summit. The best 200 kids fly into the Summit. All the agents fly into the Summit for their accreditation, but also to do deals. All the media fly in, and there's a media stage. And every deal in every corner is happening. And once it's done, if a player signs with the Canberra Raiders, Ricky Stewart rocks up, the player rocks up, the agent rocks up, the media get a chance to interview him there and then.
I love it. So some of the pushback of that is, and even to your point around your nephew about moving to a geographical location that is unsuited to that person. Now, I guess that conversation could be had, but also, when I look at the States, it's part of the athlete culture. You know,
definitely.
Not every player that grows up in California gets to stay in the Sunshine State of California. No. It might be you get drafted to Buffalo, and away we go.
Definitely.
Like, I'm going to be cold for the next 10 years, and you just get on with it.
I remember when Val Holmes switched, and he was just sitting there saying exactly that. Him and his flatmate was, which one could go to Buffalo? Hope it's you.
Yeah.
Because it's freezing, right?
Yeah.
But they have the college program, which we don't have. But I think if we were able to come up with something like the NRL Academy program,
it wouldn't be that difficult to. And then even when you think for more commercial opportunities, which is where the game is heading, where that is almost the top priority for anything new, these maybe inter-school games or these new teams that are formed, like playing against each other. Can you imagine the casual fan that can't get enough of football? Like, that becomes the Tuesday night.
Well, I can remember talking to the head of news, Michael Miller, some years ago. There's not enough content, right? So imagine having the Academy Series, the NRL Academy Series, and Palm Beach versus Endeavour. The best game is a Monday night football game, and these kids get to play on that.
You could almost have it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because kids aren't working. Like, no. We you know, the networks are crying out for, like you say, for more content. You'd have football every night of the week, and for a lot of people that makes that's too much. But there's a huge population of people out there that would watch. Every time you go to the States, there's basketball on every single day.
There's content on all the time.
And that's where the NBA can get the leg up, because the ability to play basketball, it's not necessarily contact sport, but they're college, NBA, all the time, games are on.
Definitely.
And it becomes, it's the cultural norm.
And if we had something like that, it would even give us a further advantage over the likes of rugby union or the other codes, because it would give our youth a platform and a stage to show their ability on a bigger stage. Monday Night Football. It could be called Monday Night Football.
Oh, man, there's so much
Kids
there.
would love it.
And you think about aspiring athletes, you know, the difference between... There's a lot of athletes that could switch between rugby, NRL, and AFL.
Definitely.
You're on TV. You know where you're going, right?
The NYC.
You know where you get like.
Yeah, well, the NYC competition, it dragged a lot of rugby clients over to our code.
Because they're on TV.
Because they're on TV, flying around in their club gear. We don't have to go that far, but international, even international. So the very best school in New Zealand could play the very best school in New South Wales Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I think there's so much legs in there. So this is at the beginning. You obviously go on to become, like I say, one of the top agents, and said a little bit earlier around how it's deemed as this the fantasy job, and it's all hanging out. But you mentioned about dealing with the I guess the hard dealing, putting out fires, maybe off-field incidences. What about when there's not a contract on the table?
Yep.
And can you explain your role in that? Is it different at different times? Because I'm trying to think of myself. Player, I'm coming off contract November 1. You know, as soon as that, I'm in that 12-month period. Probably prior to that, I'm speaking to you. Do they want to keep me? The longer that process goes on, like conversations happening between the club and the player, or is it always through you? Can you just explain about how all that would work?
Well, look, when the player's coming off contract, when you know you're coming off contract, look, it becomes a little anxiety for the player, but also ourselves. I mean, we've been part of your journey, so we want to make sure we deliver on that next contract. And it's hard. You know, sometimes injuries occur, form drops, coaches change. There's so many different things that go into playing and being an NRL player. You know, I say to young kids when they start, it's when hard work meets talent, then you'll get a professional sports person, right? Plus a little bit of luck, you know, luck on injuries, luck on you played well that day when that scout was there. The new coach arrives and you play the first 2 games really well. Bit of luck. But it is very difficult. It's not always, as I said, Jerry Maguire time when you are out having lunch and coffee and beers. You sometimes got to sit down with a family and the contracts come to an end and there's no contract. So what are we doing? We're looking for life after sport. And I've helped many athletes transition into life after sport. You know, and that is a question that is repeatedly asked in our space, especially when the player is coming towards that 25 onwards. Let's face it, any sports star that makes it to the top of their code, they're bulletproof. Right? So when you're trying to talk to a 19-year-old elite athlete, talking about, mate, in 20 years' time, you need to make sure you got this house and this investment. And they don't want to listen. Mate, they're bulletproof. Nothing's changing. They're going to play NRL. They're going to play AFL. They're going to play in the NFL, right? So that's what makes them special, right? They're narrow-minded. They're focused, sometimes selfish, which you have to be to make it at the top of sport. So as it goes on, as they mature, as they have a family, then things start to come into play about, I've got another 40, 50 years of living here. What am I going to do? And those conversations.
Should have listened. I knew he was onto something.
Well, those conversations start to happen.
Yeah, I imagine you've been there.
So
if I had have opened that investment account and put $500 a month in, it would have been worth that now. Bastard.
Yes. And look, it's interesting. It's, as I said, my job is different every day I turn my phone on. From talking to the 35-year-old finishing his career to the 18-year-old debuting this weekend.
You know when you say you have to have that conversation, is that do a lot of clubs have that conversation? Because I'm thinking
the well-being officer
should be on them.
Definitely the well-being officers involved in those conversations, and they would be having regular conversations with today's athlete.
But even if
But
not even the younger ones, but I'm
no, the older ones.
if a player's coming to the end of their deal and they want to move them on, like that should be the club should have that. The coach and the CEO should have that conversation, or the general manager of football.
Are you talking about just moving on from a club?
Yeah,
Yep, no,
moving on from a club. Like
I'm sure
if there's
that
no
happens.
deal there.
I'm sure that happens. It probably happens more often with the agent, unfortunately. I've been watching the AFL just this last week, and they have exit meetings, and that's happening every day at the moment. So those coaches and list managers are having those exit meetings with every player in their club. Happened to one of ours at GWS, and it's something that every player comes to the end of their career at some stage.
Yeah.
So those conversations will occur. I think we just need to be mindful that, from age 5, they've thrown their entire being into becoming this person, and it comes to an end. So those who are diligent around their education and those who have got good people around them, they make the transition a lot easier.
I meant to ask you this a little bit earlier, but the profession of player agent, player manager, why is it needed?
Why is the agent needed?
Yeah, why is your role needed? Because I'm looking at the NRL.
Mm-hmm.
They're obligated to spend 95% of their cap, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think player agents exist? I mean, I'd love to go back further and see where the first ones come in. I guess with money coming into the sport, there's a level of anxiety around negotiating your worth. You don't want to get ripped off. But in a salary cap sport, the clubs are obligated to spend 95%.
So there's only a certain amount of money available on the table.
Yeah.
So someone's got to go and get it. Right?
But why can't the player have enough confidence and communication skills to if you trust in them on the field, like do you understand?
I get what you're saying, but at the same time, how many times does a player have the network to pick up a phone and call every club and say, "Hey guys, I'm available.
Yeah,
what are you willing to pay for me?" Right now, I can still remember I come to an end at Cronulla. I was worried again where I was going. So I cut up tapes, DVDs this time, sent them out. I remember my fax machine ringing, and it was Wayne Bennett at the end. And he said to me, "G'day, mate." And I thought, this is a G-up, it's not Wayne Bennett. And I was about to say something, and he said something else. I went, "Oh, it is Wayne Bennett." And he said, "Listen, mate, I've got a young Alfie Langer, halfback, I've got this bloke and this bloke. I've got too many. But I like what I saw. So I've made a phone call to Donnie Ferner, who was the Raiders' Donnie Ferner's father, senior, at Seagulls for you, and he'll give you a call." Next minute the phone rang, and he said, "I've just spoken to Wayne, we'd like to sign you. How much?" I had no idea. I just plucked the figure out of my mind, and he said, "Done." Sent a one-pager through, I signed it on the fax machine. Now, had I had an agent, I probably could have got double. Had I known the marketplace, which I didn't, had I known rosters, which I didn't, just basically shot a shotgun into the air and hopefully one of the pellets hit a club. You know?
See, I get it why you're required, but I guess a lot of the listeners and the viewers of the show would be I guess because there's so much association with negative headlines around
definitely.
Player agents. It's like one of the questions would be, well, why are they even needed?
I think that clearly when you see some of those headlines, you can understand that the agent is actually taking the brunt of it, which is fine. That's our job. You are there to protect your client. You're there to represent your client. And we're there to make sure that, the contract reflects his ability and he's going to the right roster, and that takes research. It just doesn't, you just can't, take phone calls every day. You've got to get on the phone and get around to the rosters and know where that your back rower, where is a club and its roster required? You know, who's looking for what? So you get on your bike and you get on the phone and you take him to meetings and you basically are trying to ensure that he gets a place to land and it's the best place for him to land in the roster that suits him the best with a financial package that reflects his ability. That's our role. And then on top of that, it's to ensure that we guide them and assist them with all things off field too, around their social media, their sponsorships, their branding, their life after sport.
I guess one of the complaints of the public is that some player agents have too much power at certain clubs. And I understand how in most walks of life, people would lean on people that they know, they trust. There's less work involved that way. And people do pull strings for people and do favours for people. But for the fan at home, it's hard to take when they see so many players from one player agency all playing for the same club. Is this something that you feel is as unfair accusation on the player agents?
Well, I think it's unfair that that people would think that we would have the ability or the power over CEOs or coaches.
So that doesn't.
No.
But what about when you represent a coach at the club as well as a number of players?
Definitely. I've had those conversations with people. I manage a number of NRL head coaches, and what I do know is that I don't believe any of my head coaches buy my players because they're with PSM. It's their careers. They live and die by their decisions. Why would you buy a player that's not a quality player for your roster that's only going to hurt your coaching career, in my opinion? Right. So
I guess
I also know that I coached Mudgeeraba Redbacks to 12 straight losses under 17. So I don't give coaching advice. I might give communication advice to a coach and say, mate, you need to communicate with your CEO, your chairman on a regular basis. You might, be like working at Rebel Sports and not getting on with the store manager. How long are you going to keep your job for?
I guess the argument back to that would be fear. Like if I'm the coach and you're my agent and you've got some players, I know that this job isn't going to last forever. So I'm indebted to you for brokering this deal for me, but also I'm thinking ahead because you've got a number of other coaches. So if I don't take these two players, do you a favor, then maybe, because it would be doing me a favor. And that's how a lot of people trade. A lot of people trade through favors and future favors and a bit of horse trading. It's like, if it already comes to me with a couple of players, it's within my interest to look after you because you've looked after me and you're going to look after me in the future.
Look, I can see someone drawing a line between those two dots, but again, I get back to coaches are just as driven as players. They're not going to risk their coaching careers by purchasing a poorer player of my stable versus buying Isaac Moses' player who's a better player, who's going to fill a better role for him and give him success. I don't see it. My coaches never bring it up with me. In fact, I would advise them, and I have advised them, to talk to every agent.
Yeah.
Show them some professional courtesy, return their calls. I don't have all the players. You can't come to my well all the time. You'll have to go to Dave Riolo's well. You have to go to Isaac's well. And all the agents are looking for is just show them some professional courtesy.
Yeah.
They make a phone call to you. You make a phone call to them. If there's a deal to happen, let's get the deal done.
One of the ways to quash this would be, I don't know how, but it's been muted about a ban of the ability to manage both NRL players and NRL coaches.
Yep.
I'm just of the opinion, well, yeah, you can ban it, but it's, yourself and Gavin just split the deck, and it's the same.
They can look
it's
at
the
that.
same.
But I've had a lot of coaches. I remember a coaching panel got together and they were talking about that. But in the end, I believe the coaches said, why are they going to be disadvantaged by not having an industry expert looking after them, especially when they get fired?
Because
if Brad Arthur finished up,
you have to be separate, so you can either do players or coaches. So
but there's not enough coaches to generate enough revenue. You'd end up allowing them just to go off and get accountants or lawyers to look after them. But that would be disadvantage to the coach, right? Not having an industry expert. So someone like Brad Arthur, who finishes up 11 years at Parramatta, not in the wildest dreams would he have thought he'd arrive at Leeds Rhinos. That was my idea.
Yeah.
He was heading down possibly to be director of coaching or assistant coaching to Adam O'Brien. And I said, well, how about we do this? This is a better idea. And he's loved it. It's actually, I think, gave him a new perspective on coaching because over there you get the whole week off. And, mate, I don't think I've ever seen Brad Arthur have a break ever. And I think his only holiday was in his footy shorts at Bali. And here he is down the Mouthy Coast with his family, enjoying life, and a week off. A week off in the middle of the year. Can you imagine that? Brad Arthur never thought about it.
Yeah.
But again, getting back to that whole agent representing both, I just think that in the end, the list manager or the football manager is the guy negotiating the deal. And it will come down to what roster is required, what particular athlete is required, and what salary cap is available, whether they choose my client or Dave Riolo's client.
You mentioned there about having a number of coaches and with a finite number of jobs. And this probably is applicable to players as well. I know it happened with me when I was in the Riolo stable, if you like, and coming to the NRL. He also looked after Adam Blair, or I think it was maybe him and Isaac at the time. So they were from the same company.
Yep.
Some teams were interested in both of us. Some teams were, well, if we miss Blair, we'll go for Graham. Some said we'll just go for Graham. So it was a strange situation where two front rowers or middle forwards were on the market at the same time with the same management. And I imagine there was a bit of well, no, there probably was a little bit of awkwardness. And for me, I was new kid on the block. I wanted to come to the NRL.
Jimmy, would you say you're the same style of player as Adam Blair?
No, we were different. We were different, but there was enough similarities to, and that was reflected in some of the conversations the clubs had. It's like, well, if Blair go, we'll go. They did that, and to be honest, Dave was pretty upfront about it. He's like, look, some teams said they're going to go for Blair, and if they miss them, they'll go you. Well, I was kind of like, well, I don't want to be someone's second choice. But I understand that that's what happens. But with yourself and some coaches, and with the scarcity of jobs. A job comes up. How do you, if you've got three aspiring head coaches that are not out of work, but not in their preferred role, how do you navigate that? Like what do you actually do?
It's no different to when you're representing two halfbacks or two front rowers. At the end of the day, we're representing different clients. They are different in their coaching methods, and we present their presentation. They both, or say there's three of them, they'll all design their own theories and coaching philosophies around how they would take on that coaching position. And that presentation is assisted and drafted by my team and issued to that club. And that club would look upon Coach X versus Coach Y as, presenting this style of coaching and theories that are going to come to our club, and this other coach is presenting something different. And it's their coaching committee or their board or their owner that will make that final decision. They'll interview them. Some coaches will present well, and they'll get the job.
Is it easier for you if that's not the case, though? Like, is that your preference? If it's like, it'd be quite handy if I only had one.
Yeah, look, I don't. I'm there representing each individual to the best of my ability.
If I'm Coach Y and Coach Z is over there,
yep,
we're both going for the job. Am I okay to call you up and say, how did he go?
Yeah, they do. They actually do, and I keep them separate.
Is it difficult to separate?
It's just what you have to do. They'll ask questions. Is Coach Y going for the Titans? Does that mean I should go for the Knights, or should I go for this other job? And again, I had a coach yesterday in relation to the Knights. Should I go for it? Absolutely. Why not? But he wanted to know if he's a real chance, or is he just going to be one of the numbers? So those questions.
How do you figure that out?
Well, I put him in touch with the club.
But how do you figure out if it's just a token interview versus?
Well, you have to have those conversations with people inside the club, the CEO, the chairman, or something, and the coach needs to get a feel for it himself. Like, that's why I'd rather them talk to him and say, listen, if I'm going to go to my club and let them know that I'm going to go in for the head coaching job at your club, which may unsettle some things at my current club. I want to make sure that I'm a serious contender for that job. Right?
That makes sense.
And you don't want to go through just the process, right?
Just for the sake of being told.
Sake of it.
No, because you've put a lot on the line, especially with the presentation. Do coaches seek help from you in what the recipients of the presentation are looking for? Because look, I'm thinking back to some of the better coaches that I've had, and even some those indifferent and in between. Like, they might be able to make a great presentation, or not be able to, even worse, and just thinking, well, they missed out on the job. Like,
I think the
how important is that?
Presentation is one part of it. Your personal delivery is a second part of it. And then I think the clubs will do their due diligence on you.
Have you ever seen a job get lost in a presentation?
Yes, I've had feedback that he didn't present well. And he's missed out the opportunity.
Because
he didn't present well at the interview with his presentation and his personal presentation, answering the questions.
And even though he was likely
and he probably would have been a great candidate for the job.
But what do you do there?
Well, again, it's no different to players, is it? Like, I think my particular halfback suits that roster.
But a player wouldn't present.
No.
Pitch, if
I present.
You pitch.
Yeah, I have highlights.
You do all the talk.
I do all that.
So why is it different for? I do understand why.
The coach he's the leader of the club, isn't he? The head coach, right? So when he's going to present, he's presenting how he will lead that club forward. A player's going to participate and be one of the team to bring that success to that team and that club. But head coach is a very important role. I mean,
we're going to talk a little bit later about how the future of sports management, sports agency could look. Mm-hmm. And one of those things is undoubtedly going to be AI.
Yep.
Will the first coach to adopt AI to their presentation be the most likely to get the job? And then it becomes even harder to see through what some may consider a good bullshit artist in a presentation. Or even more difficult for the key decision makers to go, you know what, he didn't present well, but there's something in this guy.
Yes. I think character and the way he holds himself is going to still be, and his coaching theories and philosophies are going to still be strong case to get him the job. But I went to a seminar the other day and on AI, and at the end of it, the gentleman said, now I'm not saying AI is going to replace you in your job, But what I am saying is someone who knows AI will. And even in the agency game, we've been drilling right down in AI at the moment. And one of our agents used Toby Sexton as a bit of an example, and used AI to research every club roster, put all the input of what he was on, what he thought he should be on, what others could be on, and what it came back with was amazing. It down to the 2 or 3 clubs that I thought absolutely fitted Toby Sexton. So, mate, AI is here, and it's in every industry, and we'd be silly to think it isn't going to affect our industry.
Yeah, I think it obviously it causes a lot of anxiety, but it's also that it turns people's heads about fascination about where all walks of life and sport is no different could go with the advancement that
Definitely.
AI brings. I guess it does need to be exercised with caution though, because it's going to be hard to separate. You mentioned that word before about authenticity, rather. And if the AI is doing all the talking in a presentation to the coach, you know,
definitely.
Can they do that in their presentation?
But sometimes
in the
Jimmy,
review?
with AI, you can't even tell the difference.
No, you can't. But if you're using all these bells and whistles,
Yep.
you know, you can
I think-
quickly you'd be able to fool people with it. As you know, well, just like
there'll be
anything, people leverage whatever they've got to fool people.
Yeah, but I still think connection between coach and player is extremely important, you know, to get the job done out in the field. You know, the trust, the trust, the understanding of what you want from your player to go out there and deliver, the confidence that a coach gives to a player, the player thinking, my coach believes in me to do this job, I'll get it done. I don't know whether AI can substitute that sort of stuff.
It probably won't, but it could.
You could certainly make recruitment
leveraged.
officers,
Yeah.
right, help their role, you know, because it could spit out a roster very quickly if you put all the right information in.
Well, I think
And it will give you values.
Going to your idea earlier around the NRL and that taking control of player development. What was the book I read? The Sports Gene. It was. It was called The Sports Gene, where and obviously in the States, and they do the combine. Everyone's wingspan is measured.
Yes.
And in basketball, it's something, I want to say if it's like 10% of people over 7 foot. I'm paraphrasing here, but it's something like 10% of people over 7 foot will play in the NBA.
Well,
so like they look
can't
for
coach it, can you? So
yeah,
it's
you can't coach height, you can't coach speed, like.
But they do
wingspan.
They do rely heavily on statistics. You know, measurements. It's unbelievable how much they lean in on that. You know, like a left tackle's never been any good if he doesn't have this level wingspan and this such. Where you imagine if that was, you know, applied to our game, the likes of an Alfie Langer would never have been Alfie Langer.
Well, this is the point I was going to make, is it's going to make it harder for quote-unquote footballers. It's going to be less about skill and game knowledge, game IQ, football IQ, whatever you want to spin that as, and more, it's going to become potentially more and more athletic.
Well, I believe our code's already gone down that path over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, you hear recruitment officers walking around, oh, look at his shape, you know, the terminology they use now. Look at the athleticism, you know, in their recruitment dialogue between each other.
Well, when we had Matt Cameron on the show from the Penrith Panthers, and he said the one thing we look for is there's a conditioning test. And if you don't meet that a certain level, well, you're no good to us.
Yeah.
You've got to be fit.
Definitely. But there's stats you're never going to be able to test, is it? Like toughness.
Yeah.
Character. They've got to be high on coaches and
Coachability.
Yeah,
Coachability is a huge
can
one.
you learn? Can you be taught something?
The ability to absorb and adapt to information, how you learn.
Yeah. And we do that even in our recruitment ourselves at the moment. Over the last 10 years, I think, every agent saw the outstanding young athlete and everyone went after him. We will drill down a little bit further than just his ability on the field these days when we're looking to sign him. We'll look at their background, their family, their character before we'll sign them.
The sport agent?
Yeah, because
is that for reputation? Is that so you build your reputation in the industry as being a reputable source?
That and time versus money. If you're going to put all this effort and time into a 15, 16, 17-year-old, we're not getting a return, and your research comes back that he's a little bit loose and he's hard work, then you're probably better off investing that time, effort, and resources into a kid that's got a better return on his character.
I suppose again, those lovable rogues or those type of people,
little character things are different to
they're likely the major four ones. For the big deals they may bring in, the more work they're going to be as well with potential off-field situations.
Yeah, and again, the X factors and those guys.
Chris, one of the things that you revolutionized the game with, or as a big part of, is the 10-year deal. It's been a negotiation tactic. I don't know if that's quite the correct phrase, but it's been successful.
It definitely is.
I can see both sides to this. I can see the security, but then what it doesn't give is flexibility. It's very it's fixed. So there's pros and cons to it. Can you talk to us about where the idea first came from? Because was it Jason Taumalolo in 2014?
It was. Yep. So firstly, I'll just tell you, literally, as a CEO last week said to me, "Hey, Ori, don't come at me with one of your 10-year deals." It's like I'm Oprah Winfrey. You get a 10-year deal. You get a 10-year deal. You get a 10-year deal. The stars have to align.
Yeah.
Right. You have to be the right player at the right age, at the right club, in the right market to get a deal like this. It's not every day, which is seeing. It's not every day that a 10-year deal can be negotiated.
Yeah, there's a handful. Yeah.
And you talk about Jay. So I flew up. He was coming off contract. We sat down and, I asked him, had he given any thought about life after sport yet? And again, you're 24, you're bulletproof, right? You're at the peak of your powers. You're playing NRL at 17. You're now playing representative football. He's not thinking what he's doing when he's 50, right? Unfortunately. But none of them are. So,
I imagine Taumalolo at that time thinking he's going to play forever.
Yeah, and
I get that because I've been there.
They're never going to get injured.
That's tomorrow's problem.
That's it.
And I'll just keep on playing. Fufu Moi Moi, I think he played till about 48.
Well, and sitting there listening to Jason's feedback, I instantly said, I need to get job security for him. I need to get him the longest deal I can with the best money I can and help him wisely invest that. So when he comes to the end of his career, he's going to have a guaranteed X amount coming in the door for the rest of his life, which Jason will.
Sorry, that's post-football?
Post-career, money that we've been able to earn. Yeah. So that, again, in NRL, it's unlike the NFL, the contract's all guaranteed.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can take that to the bank and you can get finance and you can then go into an opportunity of investing your money. So when you retire, all those investment decisions will come back to assist you. So I drafted up a presentation. I organised a meeting with the chairman and the coach and the CEO, and I sat there and I presented to him in a public area in a cafe and said, this is what I'm thinking, guys. Have a look at it. Give me your thoughts. Some of them were reading through the fluff about, Jason's achievements and so forth, but the CEO went straight to the money page. Mm-hmm. And his face when he looked up at me, and then he turned to the chairman and said, have you read the last page yet? And then he quickly flicked to the last page and they went, is this serious? And I said, it is. I think where Jason's in his career, what he's been able to achieve, I think he's definitely worth it. I think it's a great investment. I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about it. I'll walk over here and come back. I think it was 15 minutes, 10 minutes. I walked back over. The chairman stood up, put his hand out and said, deal.
Wow.
And that's as quick as that deal, it happened. And I think Jason's proved, as much as some people might say, the 10-year might hurt a club and so forth, they've got tremendous value out of Jason Taumalolo.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
I think
undoubted.
he's 6 times Player of the Year there, Daly M, Grand Final, and he's still delivering. When he's on that field, it's no fluke at the moment that the Cowboys are back playing better football because Jason's back in the team. Okay, so yeah, I think there are particular players where the stars align that these deals both work for the club and work for the player.
Yeah.
I don't sit on the other side of the club table yet, but I think the Cowboys would still think Jason Taumalolo is a fantastic asset to their club.
100%. I guess one of the downsides for the player is there is no flexibility there, and it's hard to make a plan for who you'll be in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, never mind 10. And the conveyor belt of players that would walk through the door that you get on with that you maybe wouldn't, the different coaches that you'd likely, most 10-year periods at one club would see 3.5 coaches.
Possibly.
Yeah.
And look, they are certainly the challenges or the obstacles that you might have to consider. But the upside, as I said, is job security. And Jimmy, you played in the engine room, right? Every time you've run that ball up, you play contact sport. You don't know whether you're going to play the next day, right? And contact sport doesn't really allow for job security.
No.
There's not an accountant that gets up in the morning, goes to work and think, oh, I'll be injured today. Probably he doesn't.
Could it be used as a way to potentially roll up the cap? So if, with medical retirements, now I know there are a number of clubs that had some star players on big money medically retire. Now, again, you talk about being in the engine room. I reckon most players, if they really pushed it, especially in the middle, could be, if they wanted to, medically retired for concussion-related issues or shoulder-related issues, back-related issues. Like a doctor could have signed me off many times, in fact.
But there's a lot more into that. To medically retire, there's a lot more in it than just thinking I'm done this week.
Yeah, no, but I reckon doctors could have legitimately signed off. And we've seen, I think it, what I'm sort of leaning
I personally
toward,
haven't come across it with a client to date. But obviously there's been a number of medically retired players, but I haven't come across one.
Because in the States, there's a baseball player, isn't there, that he's got a contract for like 30 years with the club?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, I know you can't do that here, but it's basically it's salary cap rolling at its finest.
Well, if you could, think that far ahead, how does that look? Yeah, look, again, you'd have to get a doctor to risk his medical reputation, which I just don't see.
Yeah. As well as the security, sometimes with players that they almost, you can observe someone go, he looks like he's playing like he's off contract, and it does seem to bring out the best in people as well.
Definitely. And that's what I'm saying.
Like that fighting for security is part of the drive.
If I'm a club and you're going to do one of these deals, you need to know the character.
Yeah.
Right. Is that player a competitor? So every time he crosses that white line, is he a competitor? And Jason Taumalolo hates losing. Right. So every time he crosses that white line, he's going to compete, regardless of what you pay him. And I don't know too many players, to be honest, Jimmy. I don't think any player ever crosses the white line and says to himself, I earn another $1,000 if I win this game.
No, they don't, but you can see some players that are playing for their future.
Definitely when they're coming off contract.
Yeah. You know, like
you can see a player get a little bit more
that's
energy, urgency. Well, that's what clubs always say anyway. But at the same time, that player's playing well. He's putting himself in the window for every other club.
Yeah, of course.
So
So
the club's got to always weigh up, do I risk losing this quality player?
Yeah. And you mentioned it when you spoke about Jason and this plan for post-football life. Is that hard? Because, you know, what was he, 23, 24 at the time?
Yep.
I imagine you're looking at $10 million, then a few ratchet clauses. Like, he's rich beyond his wildest dreams. And often when people get rich beyond their wildest dreams, they spend it on things that they maybe don't necessarily need.
Definitely.
And again, well, you know what? I'll save in year 8 and year 9 and year 10. Like, that'll be enough. I'm just going to, thanks, Chris, for your hot tip on the stocks, but I've earned this. I'm going to spend it.
Yep. Look, I think with a big contract comes some big problems.
Yeah.
You know, and if you've not got the right people around you helping you guide and advise you around that, definitely big problems can occur. Which again, you know, we work on budgeting, giving them a normal salary, keeping it normal, to ensure that life after sport is looked after. If you go and blow it all, then, you know, you end up at the end of your career with nothing to show for it. What have you done for it? You know, and unfortunately, back in my day, I had a number of teammates that finished their career way better than me. And they had nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
Now, you know, the gambling, it's a big issue across our code, across any code. You know, so again, managing that contract is also part of what we help to do. You know, making sure that you don't go and.
Is that compulsory with you, or it's strongly advised, or like if a player turns around and says, "Look, I just want my money, and I've got fun
money.
things I want to spend it on, like thanks but no thanks."
It's definitely their money.
Yeah.
Okay, but we have systems and processes in place that, depending on the athlete, depending on his financial ability to understand what he's doing with his money, or he's got other people that he's found, because don't always have to rely on our people, that might be giving him the advice. But we've got a system that's as flexible or as tight as your account closes down on Friday, you can't open it till Monday.
Yeah.
Because most of the bad spending happens on Saturday and Sunday, okay?
It depends on how you look at it.
Why?
Well, I think some of the best spending I've ever done has been
good times
on weekends, you know.
Good times, yeah. No, I remember I was in a barber shop and one of my Titans players were on the program, and he wanted to buy a tinny out of Toowoomba, and he couldn't access $5,000, whatever it was. So he's going to lose the tinny, and he said, rang me up, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm getting a haircut." He said, I need some money. I need this. And I said, "Is this legit? Show me." And he sent me the the thing. I said, okay, sweet. He said, but I can't get the money out. I said, I'll loan it to you. So I went to my bank account, took the money out, gave it to him. He's a great young fella. And off he went and bought a tinny, and he took the photo and showed me, and he just paid it back on Monday. Yeah.
Look, I do get that. Like with that life-changing money, it's hard for athletes to comprehend. I think most player agents would operate that way. You're almost protecting them from themselves,
or sometimes other people that are in their circle.
Like people looking to
definitely
extort them, really. At about the time of the Jason Taumalolo 10-year deal, it was almost rumoured that there was a bit of interest from NFL. That obviously didn't eventuate, but it did with Valentine Holmes.
Yeah, so both those players we bought back through, they were over on tours. We bought back through America and had them work out with American NFL scouts, and they were very impressed. And Jason decided not to pursue it. A year or two later, Val Holmes did, and he took off to the NFL Pathways program, and he was positioned on the New York Jets. And look, to this day, Val could have definitely made the NFL. There's no doubt in my mind. He had a few things on his plate. He got married, but I think had that New York Jets coach gave him just that little bit more confidence and love early on in that period, I think he would have stuck it out and pursued it. Because his third trial match, he was outstanding. Yeah, he was outstanding, but he'd already made the decision to go back. And he tells me when he walked in and told the coach and shook his hand, the coach couldn't believe it. He said, it's like no one ever quits the NFL.
Yeah.
You get told you no longer want it, but no one quits it. And the coach gave him his personal mobile number and said, mate, ring me anytime you want to come back. And it was like Val, he said had he felt like that coach was that invested in me earlier, I probably wouldn't have come to this decision. But I felt like I was just gone from being an elite athlete in Australia to tackle bag holder in the NFL. I wasn't getting the opportunities or the reps or probably the encouragement. So, he chose to come back and join the Cowboys.
Yeah, it always fascinates me that like the league players going to the NFL. There was I was listening to an interview with I think the Welsh Rugby Union player that recently had a crack over there, and he just said like they don't have any conditioning. They're different athletes altogether. And even thinking back to when Jared Hayne went, and I guess some of the regulations that don't exist in American sport. There was a picture that did the rounds with Jared Hayne and his San Francisco 49ers teammates, and Hayne looked sloppy.
Yeah, in comparison.
In comparison to the 14, 15 other blokes that looked like ripped Adonises.
Yes.
Now, you don't need to be Einstein to figure out what's going on there. In my opinion.
Yeah.
Like
it's a different code. It is built for speed and power, not endurance. And I think you're going to see an invasion after the success of Jordan Mailata. The big Polynesian athletes that have come across rugby union, rugby league over the years that have probably, due to the high level endurance, has probably been pushed aside, are now capable of pursuing a career in American football because it's like 10 seconds of effort and 15 seconds of break. Right? It suits some of those big athletic, athletic like Jordan to the ground, where I can remember sending the highlight reel of Jordan over to the American counterparts, and they were blown away with his athleticism. Now it's a highlights tape. What it doesn't show is after that big run and he's banging off people that he was like exhausted for 30 seconds, right? But when my agent walked Jordan in to meet me at a hotel, the sheer size of him, and then I've seen the footage, his athleticism, it was the code for him. And the fact that we had some changing in our rules, the 6 to go rule, that was always going to be a bit difficult for the likes of Jordan.
So with Jordan, did he come to you with the view of that's where I want to go, or it was what can we do? Where can I go?
Yeah, the whole family and himself, they were focused on the NRL. They wanted to be an NRL player
Because he was South's under 20s at the time. Yeah. I think it grew up in the
Canterbury Bankstown
Canterbury,
area.
yeah.
He played in the lower grades there. My agent, George Gazelle, he was the one who was representing him. Wasn't getting much of a response from the NRL clubs, but thought, he's an athletic big human and knew I was pursuing the NFL opportunities. Brought him to meet me, but I said, before you meet me, make sure you have every club's response on Jordan. So when we sat down and we said these are all 16 clubs have said
NRL,
said no. I think we should pursue an NFL opportunity. It wasn't instant, yes, let's do that from Jordan, and certainly wasn't from his family. There was some concerns about him going to America, which is fine.
Legitimate, yeah, right.
So I said, let's take it one step at a time. Let me put a highlights. Let me reach out. And we got a response. Then I said, that's step 2. I'll pay for it. Let's get on a plane. Let's go over to the LA. Let's just work out. Funny enough, a year or so later, the guys that worked him out said the moment he walked in, the moment he did one drill with a tennis ball, they said, we should sign this kid.
Wow.
He did that. He enjoyed it. So then I was convincing the family to let him go on this NFL Pathways program.
Because how old is he at this stage?
20, 21. Yep. And that was just an 8-week program at IMG Academy where they taught him. And again, Jordan had no idea what American football looked like, never put a helmet on.
So that raw, isn't it?
Never put a helmet on. There'll be a movie on Jordan Mailata, right? Win a Super Bowl. First athlete to ever be drafted that's ever played one down of football, right? So every other college kid's played their whole life. He's never played one game, and he gets drafted.
Again, is that the attributes to make the athlete I spoke about before, that they're looking at that and going, we can make this?
Definitely, and I'm like sure
the height, the power,
Coach Stout that when he'd done a workout, just fell in love with what he could do, and possibly could do. So he did like 9 visits, 9 workouts, and then there was a decision to be made about either go on the draft or go on the program. Now, the program was 4 athletes were picked. They were positioned on 4 teams, and you were the international player. You couldn't actually play. You were just there to train and learn. And if they wanted you to play, then they would have to, contract you properly. I don't know. It was like a gut feeling, and I pushed hard. There was other people in the NFL that did want him to go to the draft, and others that didn't. The decision was made that he was to be drafted, and that was exciting. Obviously Chris Orr doing his research on everything about the NFL draft was locked down to a Kevin Costner movie, Draft Day. So I arrived there completely prepared. Yeah. And we needed some people to hang out with. So Nate Miles joined us. He was in New York at the time, so he flew down. And it was an interesting few days. We were excited. We were worried. Is he going to get drafted? He's not going to get drafted. And he got down to the last round, and tensions were high. I started receiving phone calls from clubs that I've never spoken to ones that didn't even work him out, looking to talk to me about free agency and what that looked like. And I just kept on returning them saying that if you want Jordan Mailata, you need to draft him. And I know such and such club is thinking about, trading 2 spots up to get him. So you need to make some decisions. I don't think you'll make free agency. I hung up the phone and the guy beside me, the NFL guy, looked at me and said, "You done this before?" I said, "No, I'm just learning as I go." And it worked. I mean, the Eagles end up trading, I think, 2 up to get him and secure him. It was so exciting. It was very emotional. It was very raw seeing Jordan ring his parents, and there was a lot of tears and happy tears as well. And, to his credit, he went and worked his butt off. He had a lot of setbacks when he was over there. He had some back issues and different things, but as a credit to him, he's applied himself and showed some resilience. There's some times there that he was jumping on the plane to come home. He was homesick. He met a lovely lady, married her, and won a Super Bowl. So, signed a massive contract. He's fantastic for him.
From your point of view, obviously delighted on a personal level, but the art of the deal. You spoke about the Jason Taumalolo. Here, what do you think? What are the differences when negotiating with an NFL franchise?
Well, to be clear, I didn't do Jordan's deal. A major company, because COVID's come in, CAA, one of the biggest companies over there, took lead and represented him on that deal. So I didn't do that deal.
Oh, right, okay.
But we've gone and done other deals, players that we represent in the NFL. It's different. The whole process is different. It's I'm learning that even now. Like I recently did I didn't, but my agents and I was across it watching it in the AFL. That whole process is different. And we did a 10-year deal for a young kid called Mac Andrew at the Suns. And, I think every code is different, but in the end, it's people by people. You need to be able to communicate. That's heavily what our job is. Can you get on with people? Can you understand what you're selling? Sell the best attributes of that athlete to that club, but also identifying that club is the right fit for that athlete.
Is there anything that, obviously you mentioned the draft earlier and the restructure of youth participation in sport, but is there anything that you get from, being over there in the sports culture of America, in and around the NFL, that you think, we need this as part of our game day experience or sports culture experience or anything like that?
Look, it's big business in America, sport. It's on every channel, every lobby bar. It's everywhere. And the contracts are life-changing. So what I do like about American sport is how they all lean in on it, and it's like a culture. And I do like the NFL, how they own the sport. It's when you go and watch NFL in the UK, or you talk about someone, or you talk to the people on the ground here, it's NFL Australia, it's NFL UK, it's NFL Mexico. That's something I think if the NRL could do something, we should take ownership of the game, rugby league worldwide. We should own it. Well, not me, but the NRL should own it. And it should be NRL Fiji, NRL New Zealand, NRL Australia, NRL USA. And there we would have complete control over the international calendar, broadcast rights, sponsorship rights. We could host games in Dubai. We could have Wigan versus the Parramatta Eels. We could own the game and make it a bigger spectacle than it is worldwide.
That's interesting, that, because the NFL have done that really well.
Really well.
They've taken some space in the sporting stage, especially in the UK.
Definitely.
Now over here, Mexico, Brazil, many countries in Europe, they've gone with a real global approach.
Definitely.
Within the past 10, 15 years.
Definitely. And it's all about the take-up of their content, okay? So the international program they run. It's about how many Australians now and New Zealanders are all turning on to NFL Pass, watching the game because Jordan Mailata's created such a hype about it, you know. Those English players that have gone across, the African players that are going across, Mexican players that are going across, it's creating a take-up of their content.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see. What and obviously the figures that they deal with, like you say, life-changing sums of money. You know, with Jordan, are you having a similar conversation that you had with Jason, or is it not at that depth, or is that something that the other company?
I'm assuming that other company's doing that now for him. And I'm sure he's smart enough and got good people around him, and his wife's very, very across it.
Is there a player that either you manage or you see and you go, he'd be a good player agent? Is there anyone you're trying to bring in maybe on a bit of an apprenticeship style role? Is there anyone you can see?
We certainly have tried. A couple of players have come and gone. It's not for them because of the phone's never down, right? And it's funny enough. Like I never gave it a second thought that I was dragging my 2-year-old to watch Wynnum Rugby League at a outback field every weekend, and my wife, God bless her, she was supportive of it.
Yeah,
every weekend was taking up sport. If I wasn't coaching my son's team, I was out watching a different team, and he would be dragged along with me. So, yeah, look, I think any player that has a personality can communicate, because that's our biggest key, right? It's able to meet people and communicate with them, and that doesn't mean just about knowledge of the game of rugby league, but just be able to communicate to them as humans, right? Get to meet them and understand them and build some bond or trust, right? Yeah, there's some players out there that I think could really be good at agents, and there's a lot of ex-players now start. I mean, it was only me and Gavin and Dave Riolo for 20 odd years, and now there's Clint Skoski, who I play touch footy with. There's many agents now in the game that are ex-footballers.
But the most player agents get along.
Yep.
Yeah.
Look, I think the industry is professional. And I think I think we all get on. At the end of the day, mate, it's a professional industry, and I've enjoyed especially going into these other codes. They're exciting, learning different things. AFL, NFL. I'm now into basketball, so that's good.
I guess the women's sport and landscape is starting to expand as well. Which would be very exciting.
It is exciting. For a young female athlete, it's a great time to be involved in rugby league.
Yeah.
But I think that we've got a long way to go with developing our young athletes, the female athletes, and I think the 14, 15-year-old female rugby league player now, when we see her playing at 21. Mate, it's going to be a fantastic product.
I would keep you here and talk forever because this topic, I think, fascinates me, our listeners, but I do understand you have got places to go.
I am.
So just quickly, you have an idea that I'd like for you to share with our listeners about a potential podcast, what you think could go well?
Well, I was only talking to your producer the other day. I was thinking, next year maybe we put a agents podcast together. You could even host it, mate.
I think that's got some legs. I love the idea.
Three different agencies, 3 different agents having a chat about the ins and outs of the industry, what's coming up next week.
I think from my comment on your industry is you don't get the credit you deserve, and there's some smart minds there that the game could learn a lot from. But I do understand you've got places to go. So thank you for joining us here on the Buy Round, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thanks, Jimmy. Much appreciated.
Cheers, man.